there seems to be a split between the quotations of Paul and the quotations of Jesus, between between the gospel writers and the recorded statements of Paul. I mean, you can't say they were on the same page if Paul is denigrating the law and Jesus is telling the disciples, the people, that you have to keep the law.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, or Judaism and Christianity, a contrast with our awesome, sweet Rabbi Stuart the Man Federow from the Big H, Houston, Texas. Welcome back, my friend.
Good to be back.
Good,
always is.
Good to have you here. Good to have you here, always. One of these days, we'll get you here again inside the studio, which is always a pleasure. I feel like I still hear any music coming through somewhere. So we will contrast things. And guys, if you in chat have anything that you find contrasting between Jesus and Paul, put it in chat, and I'll see if I can spot it. I'll mention it on the show, and give you a shout out. So here we are, Rabbi. It's good to have you back.
Well, good to be back. So
yes, sir.
They can't both be right, which means they contradicted each other somewhere. Where do they contradict each other?
Like a lot of places, did Paul ever meet Jesus anyway?
Like what?
Did Paul ever even meet Jesus? No.
It depends on how seriously you want to take his one-time story about the road to Damascus.
Yeah.
Damascus.
Right.
And plenty of times later in his life, according to Acts and epistles, he kind of never brings it up.
Sure.
In places where you'd expect him to be able to say, oh, this is what happened, and he doesn't do it, which is very weird.
So for the new viewer who might be coming on new to the channel, even fairly recent, maybe over the last month or two, let's start off real quickly with the chronology or semi-chronology of the New Testament, the big factors involved here. Because there's not even a Christian I've ever talked to that is even aware of the fact that Paul's writings came first, long before the Gospels. And what was the spacing between the Gospels? And how come, Paul never knew about a virgin birth? If that's like the number one fundamental thing about your faith, why didn't Paul know about a virgin birth?
And the order they put their books.
Yeah.
It's the first story.
Yep.
After they do the...
right.
Yeah, it's the first story, so strange. See, to me, the bigger distinctions between Paul and Jesus is each one's approach to the law.
Right.
The law. And there's only one law that they'd be talking about back then, which was biblical, Torah.
Right.
There was no New Testament. What are they going to be talking about? The Vedas of Hinduism. So Jesus talks about, well, let's go back to what you said. Okay, in the epistles of Paul, what does he say about the law? The law is terrible, the law is bad, the law's purpose is to just be a school teacher to teach you that you can't keep it. The purpose of the law, which he claimed was to be justified by the law, which I'd love to know where they get that from.
Right.
But, very negative approach. Antinomianism is the fancy terminology.
Someone commented on, I think it was mine and Greg's video from like a month and a half ago. They said, it's interesting because, well, I'm adding the Messianic part, but as a ex-Messianic that I was, we was taught, that Jesus was the Torah, the law, the actual Torah scroll itself is like the flesh. Like it was like symbolic of this is like the flesh of Jesus. Like Jesus is the Torah in the flesh. But then Paul is saying the Torah is not necessary. So he's saying Jesus isn't necessary?
No, the Torah is fading away.
Right. So that means Jesus faded away. Yeah.
Right. But I saw his post. I thought that was funny.
That was very clever. And so also I had to mention this too. I said I would and I will. Where'd it go? Right here. Watching my life flashback. Said Jesus said do not believe anyone who says they found me in the wilderness. Road to Damascus was the wilderness. I didn't know. That's funny. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but when it comes to the law, Paul is in the epistles is saying all these terrible things about the law, and then later, whoever it was that wrote down the Gospels, what did they say? What do they say? What do they claim Jesus said about the law?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, which means they have the
Authority.
You know, they sometimes say things, but they don't do it. But whatever they say, you're supposed to do.
Right.
Okay. And Jesus' approach to the law, those who teach men not to do this will be least in the kingdom of heaven, and those who teach people to do the law will be greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
Yep.
If the Gospels were written after Paul, which they were, then that's a slap in the face against Paul. They would have known what Paul said. They're writing against Paul when they said, if you speak little of the law, you'll be least in the kingdom of heaven. So that's a response to Paul's writings. So, we don't know what Jesus said. We don't know what Paul said. We only have the written record given to us, handed down hundreds of years after Jesus. So we don't know what either of them really said.
And, I find it interesting that people will say, they'll use that to their defense. Well, we don't know really what Jesus said. But he says, well, what I do believe is Jesus was this and did this. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if you can't believe something that wasn't written, because then you're creating a whole new religion. The New Testament. Well, actually, all Christianity is stuck with what's written in the New Testament. Now, which version of the New Testament you get, whether it's the one from the Philippines or from the, all these different versions of it, is a different story. But at the end of the day, what's in your New Testament is what you're going to be accountable for, right?
Right.
And that's why they're in such danger. And I think because of this the internet we have now and the access we have to it, they're finding out all these errors, and now they're trying to figure out new ways to justify them.
Which is why most of the New Testament was written, So.
Well, I know that Paul also, he kind of spoke out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, he taught to keep Torah, but then and it depends on where you read. In some places he talks bad about it, and some places like Romans chapter 2, he basically supports the law. So it's like I guess it depends on who he's talking to, and if that's the case, it would be required for the studious one to find out, is he teaching all the law to one group and no law to another group, or is he just mixing it all up like this, interweaving it all? Because if he's interweaving it, then that means he doesn't know what he's talking about. But he's preaching all law to one sect and no law to another sect, and maybe he's trying to imply a Noahide setup,
No, there's one place where there's an implication of the Noahide laws, where in, I believe it's Acts, okay, Paul is talking to the people, telling them basically what they have to do, and he mentions some, but not all, of the 7 laws of Noah. So,
right. Was it actually
he doesn't
15
say
or 18?
These are the laws of Noah. He says these are what you have to keep, and he mentions, I can't remember, 3 or 4 of those 7 laws, or categories, whatever you want to call them.
I think it was 15 or 18, one of those two.
Yeah. So it's very, there seems to be a split between the quotations of Paul and the quotations of Jesus, between between the gospel writers and the recorded statements of Paul. I mean, you can't say they were on the same page if Paul is denigrating the law and Jesus is telling the disciples, the people, that you have to keep the law. So that seems to me, at least, to be rather clear.
Right.
And by the way, that represents the split in Acts between and the split between Paul on one hand and Peter and James on the other.
Right.
About keeping the law. And Paul may seem to have lost the battle, but he didn't lose the war.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, the book of James is in there.
That's one thing I've never heard any preacher preach on is the book of James. Rightly so, because it's like it would destroy most of everything they teach.
Well, if it's all about faith, and Peter writes, faith and works, can't have one without the other. So if then it kind of negates what Paul wrote. And like I said, he may have lost the battle, but he won the war. Because in the long run, how many Christians of all the tens of thousands of denominations, not many of them think that you have to keep kosher.
Right.
And I mean have to keep kosher. They will say, well, I do it to please God. Okay, which has always struck me as weird. But the vast majority of the denominations do not tell their followers that they have to keep kosher or keep Saturday as the Sabbath. And the ones who do are looked at as a heresy of the full church.
Oh, let's see. Somebody said they have a question here. Let me see who that was. If you do have a question, tag me. Put at and then TaNaCh Talk. But you have to select once it starts to highlight or autofill. You have to click on it, otherwise it won't highlight. Somebody said Puzzled or Puzzy has a question, but I can't find where. Oh, there it is, right there. Oh, that's interesting. Puzzed, P-U-Z-I-D, said, unfortunately, this channel only has layman, anonymous callers who cannot effectively rebut any assertions you make regarding Christianity. Basically, this is just a slam dunk one-sided program. Wow, Puzzed, you have no idea. I literally have a folder in my in my YouTube channel of testimonies that you people you call laymen are 30 and 40-year preachers who left the church. So, I've never seen you in my chat before, so clearly you're speaking presumptuously without even investigating it for yourself. No, everything we have here, and these are not anonymous callers. They actually tell you who they are. They say, I'm so-and-so from Washington or whatever. So they're not anonymous callers, right? And the rabbis we have here are very, very well trained in what they do. So welcome to the channel. Hopefully you'll learn something while you're here instead of making silly statements.
Or as an expert. Let him call in or whatever. And
that's a good idea. Puzz, why don't you call in? The phone number I'll put on your screen right now, and then I would like for you to call in actually. And let me get the phone lines turned on. That way,
if he has a question, I mean,
Well, it sounds like he's got lots of answers, which means the answers have to come with questions. So you can present maybe a question that you don't think we know the answer to, and then we'll take it that way. How's that? So give me 1 second. I'm logging into the phone thing now. Rav, if you have anything else to talk about, you can while I'm doing this. All right, phone lines are open. Numbers on your screen. Give us a call, Puzz. Hope I'm saying that name right. Not really sure how that works, but very good. All right. And by the way, thank you, AN, for the 5. Thank you. Very kind of you. Let's see. I would really like for him to call in because, like I said, I mean, this is what this channel is for: is to answer questions. This isn't like a staged event to where we have people call in and we tell them what to ask. This is calling in from their own hurts and their own concerns. All right, let's see what this is Madman Mark. Hey, Mark, what's up, brother?
Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Pretty good. What do you got for a question tonight?
All right. I've had this possible theory, that Mary was abducted by aliens.
Oh, boy. Well, let's go prove that.
Hey, I love that, though. That would explain the virgin birth thing.
Virgin birth, Jesus has magical powers,
That's funny, right. Wow, that's fine. I've never heard that before. That's interesting. Well, if aliens are real, they certainly have been here throughout the duration, so it wouldn't be impossible if that's the case, right? Interesting.
Right. So that's my theory.
I'm gonna have to
And
relabel the show title now. So was Mary abducted by aliens?
You know,
That's
there's
great. That's great.
yes,
there's a TV show about ancient
because
aliens or something.
she probably thought she
Hey,
was an angel.
Hey, Mark. Mark, hang on one second. I just turned Rabbi up in
Yes.
your ear. He was saying something, and you couldn't hear him, but I just turned him up in your ear. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
What I was saying is that there's a TV show called Ancient Aliens. We wish we would get that topic on there.
Oh, that would be cool. Right. Okay, hey, let me check this phone call. It might be our caller, okay? Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
All right, later, bud. You're live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Charles from North Carolina.
Charles from North Carolina. Welcome back. How are you? I say back, your name sounds familiar and your voice sounds familiar, so. Good deal. What kind of
that's close.
Good. What kind of question do you have for us today?
In Matthew, it says that Joseph learned that Mary was pregnant, but that the angel told him that it's from the Lord, whatever. In Luke, Mary, before she was pregnant, was told by an angel that she's going to get pregnant, and Mary says, like, how could that be? Because I never known man. But by the time when Joseph found out, it was many, many months later. So did Joseph and Mary never talk to each other for all those
Apparently
months?
not.
Interesting.
Apparently they didn't talk to each other. And what's also interesting is that right now offhand, I can't remember about Joseph, but Mary, after she's had the announcement, annunciation, whatever it's called, that she's going to give birth to the Son of God, later in that same gospel, something happens where Mary is astounded, like she didn't know that she had given birth to God's child. Like she knows nothing about any kind of announcement or annunciation or whatever they call it. It's very interesting about Mary. And notice what you just pointed out, the parallel, the mirror image. Okay? Angel comes to Joseph in Matthew, angel comes to Luke. I'm sorry, and in Luke, angel comes to Mary. So in one gospel, Joseph gets the announcement. In the other gospel, Mary gets the announcement. Wouldn't Matthew talk about Mary getting the announcement too? Or in Luke, shouldn't Luke talk about Joseph getting the announcement too? But each one is written independently. Like even Matthew knew nothing about Mary getting the announcement in Luke, and Luke knew nothing about Joseph getting the announcement in Matthew.
Right. But they call these synoptic gospels, they call these very, very easy to resolve. But these are huge problems. You can't just sweep that under a rug.
30 plus contradictions.
Charles, I'm going to hang up, man. Appreciate your call. Thank you, sir.
But you're right. 30 plus contradictions in the Gospels between one and the other, just in the Passion narrative alone. That's a lot of contradictions. It's not merely that one said a car wreck was a Ford, the other person in the same car wreck said no, it was a Chevrolet. That's a lot of differences between the two texts that are supposed to be from God anyway, supposed to be divinely inspired by a Holy Spirit, unless each gospel writer has his own Holy Spirit. But
They do have 7 spirits of God. So, how many disciples were there? Oh, they're gonna have to share one of the Holy Spirits then, I guess.
Right.
Okay, cool. All right. So, any more questions, guys? Put them out there. Otherwise, that was a short show.
Or pick up the phone and call too.
Yeah, there you go. Give us a call. Phone number's on your screen, no doubt. I was hoping to hear from that guy from Puzz or Puzz. I forgot what it was now. I don't want to seem disrespectful by not pronouncing the name right. I just don't know how you pronounce it.
Well, he left out a lot of vowels, so.
Okay, got Madman Mark back on again. Mark, welcome back. What's up?
Yes. Hi. Yeah, I thought something went wrong with the phone. Maybe a bad connection.
No, I hung up because we had another caller and you had already asked your question. Did you have another question?
No.
Okay.
I can wait till next week.
Well, if you've got a question, bring it on now.
Well, other than my topic of Mary being abducted by aliens, I was wondering if it's the lesser of two evils, so to speak. Is it worse to be an atheist, or is it worse to be some type of
Right.
Christian denomination?
That's a good question. That's good. That's a good question. I have probably a different opinion than most do on that. So you're fixing to hear.
Right.
You're probably fixing to hear both opinions. So thank you. Thanks for your call.
Okay.
All right, later. Hey Trey, sit tight. I'll be back with you in just a minute. Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay, Rabbi, go ahead.
Well, I have my own take on that.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with atheism, okay? And it's a common complaint, and atheists will disagree, but they're free to disagree. And that is, what is the standard of their behavior? What is the definition of a moral act, an ethical act? How do they know what is moral and ethical? Because they feel like it is? Okay, is it their whim? Whereas someone who is claiming at least to be a part of a specific religion has the standard of behavior demanded by that religion. That means I can come to the believer in any Christian denomination and say, are you really acting the way you're supposed to be acting according to the religion you profess? How do I do that with an atheist? What standard do I compare an atheist's behavior to when they profess no religion? And the only thing they can say is because, society will create the morality and ethics. Well, I kind of hate to always revert to this. I try not to, but, societies can vote to build gas chambers instead of voting to build hospitals. Okay, a society can choose to lynch. A lynch is a democracy where the majority says, let's hang him high. So the society, the culture, the community is making a value judgment. But people outside that society deem lynching wrong. Where's the standard for morality? Okay, I disagree with theology. I disagree on many levels with Christianity in all of its denominations, because ultimately every Christian denomination I know of has usually the two, dying, saving, and man God. Okay, dying, saving, man God. Some denominations eliminate the man God part, but they still have the dying, saving part, which is just as Christian and just as unbiblical as the man God part. Okay, I have major theological differences, but at least as a Christian, I don't care if they're evangelical, fundamentalist nutcases, they will have a standard of morality, a standard of behavior that I can ask them if they are following. Look, you don't blame a religion when people disobey the religion. You don't blame the religion because people who don't follow it. You blame the religion when it's the religion itself that tells its followers to act a certain way. And it's very easy within Christianity to act a certain way that, most people, especially the Jews, considering our history with Christianity, would say really isn't moral or ethical. But at least they have that standard. At least you can say to them, you're not acting like your Christianity, your denomination of Christianity demands from you. And they have to either say, well, I don't follow that denomination anymore, or they have to change their behavior. You cannot do that with an atheist. So my personal preference would be they should be Christians before, I would prefer them to be Christian than to be atheist. Roman Catholicism has the idea of natural law, that people in their hearts have an idea of what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, and I understand what they're saying, but what happens if a person is heartless? A person who's heartless, who says they follow a religion, can still use that religion to direct their behavior towards a more moral, ethical life. Atheists cannot. So I would personally prefer them to be Christian of any type, whatever, than to be atheist.
Okay, Linda, you are live on the air. Please tell us what your question is. Welcome back, by the way.
Oh, hi. Hi, William and Rabbi. This is Linda from Michigan. And thinking about Paul and Jesus, the topic of tonight, well, a thought has been coming through my mind in that you would think that someone would have written, if this was going to be a new era for the world, you know, the TaNaCh will be done, and then this new era coming, that nobody had written, like, I don't know, this is just my thinking, but that Jesus would have went to the temple for the last time and, you know, maybe talked to God or whatever, you know, that this is going to be a new era and stuff like that. And, you know, nobody had talked about that. You would think something
Sure.
like at Sinai where God had, you know, that all the people heard, and that and Abraham came down with the commandments and
Right.
that, but there wasn't anything of this supposedly new era in that.
Right.
And I was just wondering if you had any thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Linda, go ahead and hang up now and tune in for your answer, okay? Thank you. So one thing that comes to mind, like she's right. I mean, with in Devarim, you know, in Deuteronomy. Hang on, Gabriel's messaging me on a show. There we go. That was like a final warning, like a repeat. Like, hey guys, remember, these are the rules. Don't forget these. We're fixing to go into Promised Land, and boom, 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 boom. Right? Well, you would think that like towards the end of the prophets, that when things were getting closer to that time of the end of the era, that there would be some final warnings. And actually, there are, but Christians don't read them. You know, there's all kinds of warnings from the prophets that don't you know, bow to any man. Don't, you know, all these other things. You know, do not bow to or give heed to the princes and Son of Man, in which there is no help. I mean, all these things are right there, but Christians completely reject and deny all of those things. You know, and likewise, whenever Jesus was here, even if while Jesus was here, he supported the law. I mean, look at Matthew 5:17, Matthew 7. All these places where Jesus is clearly saying, you know, heaven and earth, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle will pass from the law, right? Until everything's fulfilled. And you go back and look, and nothing was fulfilled yet. So Jesus would have had an opportunity, knowing he was going to die, is to tell everybody, okay, guys, I'm fixing to die. After I die, you won't have to do X, Y, Z. But he didn't. He didn't. Why? Because even Jesus knew that the law was not to be done away with. You know, but Christians seem to want to think and believe that they did. Rabbi?
I would agree. I actually have very little to add to that, but I think you hit the nail on the head or something.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just go ahead and move on to another caller. Caller, you live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
This is Robbie in Texas. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Robbie. Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah. Hey, just really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
That's my cat. He's saying hello.
Tell him hi.
Hello, cat.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, and by the way, I really appreciate you being able to hear the show while I'm calling in on a hold. That's a nice feature. So
that's great.
Yeah, I was wondering, the words Paul spoke about, I have been all things to all people.
Right.
And, you know, it just echoes, you know, quite a influential philosophy. But I have noticed recently a lot of atheists posing as religious people, and I wondered if you have any thoughts on that. It seems like the atheists have a way of doing a chameleon where they can, argue for religious discrimination, then they switch over to the atheist camp and they argue for people being discriminating against atheism.
Right.
Sorry about
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that makes sense. Okay, go ahead and hang them down to me for the answer. Thank you, buddy.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you bet. All right. Yeah, so every field needs to know the counter. That's the thing. I mean, Christians don't know the counter to Judaism, but Judaism, at least on the counter-missionary side, knows the counter to Christianity. And so it sounds like the atheist, at least a certain sect of atheism that is actually getting witnessed to too much by Christians. They're having to come up with answers, and to know the answers, you have to know what the questions are. And so I think it's smart they're doing that. To be honest with you, I mean that would be smart in any given scenario, regardless of whether it was religion or something else or politics. So it's a smart move. There's something else I was going to say. Rabbi, you got something on that?
Well, all I was going to say is this: the Christians are the majority. They think they've got the answers. They don't often come up against anybody, least of all the Jews, who are going to say anything or do anything in response to their, what I would call, Christian arrogance, that they know everything, that they've got it all down pat. Okay, so they don't have a response to the Jews because they don't even know there's a Jewish response to the Christians, to Christianity. Okay, the Talmud says, Da mala hashiv, know how to respond. That doesn't always mean that we have to respond. It just means we have to have the ability to respond, to know what the response is.
Be prepared, yeah.
Also, there are books, Christian books and Jewish books, by the way, that are response to atheism. Okay, especially once you have what I call the professional atheists, like Hitchens and Harris and what's his name? Can't think of his name. There are three main ones I call professional atheists. It's like they may have other jobs, whatever, but they also make an awful lot of money off their books and atheism and their lecturing and whatever else. But if you believe or you accept the idea that atheism is, in fact, its own religion,
yep.
Yeah, I kind of agree with them. That not everything should be religion, that not everything in the public square should be Christian celebrations, or for that matter, Jewish celebrations. If this country is supposed to be a country that is not partial to one and only one religion, then, and you include atheism as a religion, then the United States as a non-religious government needs to have room for the Jews, needs to have room for Christians, and needs to have room for atheists. And I have growing up in Springfield, Missouri, okay, my brother was in 7th grade, okay, and for Easter, his 7th grade year, the front page of the newspaper of the junior high, that was a public junior high, had a great big cross in the middle. My father went to the principal to talk about it, to discuss it. And the response of the principal, according to my dad, was, but Mr. Federow, we're not sectarian. We don't push one form of Christianity over another form of Christianity. And my father didn't say a word and let his own words sink into the principal's brain. And when the principal realized what the principal himself had just said, he said, Mr. Federow, you're right. It won't happen again, and it never did. Or at least not while my middle brother or I went to that school. Christianity is not the only religion on planet Earth. But those who believe in God are not the only people on the earth either. And I don't like when religions cram down my throat. Okay, I don't watch a football game on TV in order to see Christian ads, which they're free to put up there. Okay, fully within their right to do, doesn't mean I want to see them. but neither should the atheists. Neither should the atheists be put out, and neither should the atheists put their own ads on, which they are free to do. To me, it is just as out of place, okay, inappropriate, as the Jesus gets me, or I'm sorry, Jesus gets us commercials that were on the Super Bowl during the Super Bowl this year. Okay, which I think anybody who studies comparative religion would have a response to at least one of those two ads from the Jesus Gets Us commercials. But I kind of understand even where the atheists are coming from, no matter how much I disagree with atheism, that in the same way that I want Christianity crammed down my throat, I don't want Christianity. If I were an atheist, I wouldn't want Christianity or Judaism crammed down my throat.
Right. So you have to be prepared for the answers. Right.
And you have to be, and you have to look out for the minority. The whole point of a democracy and the U.S. Constitution is to remember that even minorities have rights, which really pisses off the fundamentalist evangelical Christians. They only want to see their own. They don't see anything wrong with anything that they do. But if I were an atheist, I wouldn't be happy with any religion being crammed down my throat.
So going back to the atheist question, I had to take a call, so I wasn't able to put my 2 cents in on that. So I personally think that the atheists are better off in their lineup with the Creator than the ones who are in idolatry. And the reason why is because it's going to be a lot easier. I've found it a lot easier to talk to and communicate with an atheist than a Christian, because Christians they've already got a lifetime of learning and a belief system that they've married for years and years, decades even.
Mm-hmm.
And atheists don't really have that. They don't have something. No, they don't. As a bulk, they do not. You may find one or two who takes it down to a science level, but the bottom line is most atheists are just lazy. Pardon me if you're an atheist. I'm not saying you're lazy. A lot of the ones I've talked to are just, when I say lazy, I mean there's nothing to think about. They just don't know whether God exists or not. They're not agnostic. They're just atheist. Or no, I'm getting it backwards. Agnostics are the ones who don't care, right, or don't know, and atheists are the ones who think they can prove otherwise.
Atheists say there is no God. Agnostics are not sure one way or the other.
Gotcha. Okay. So,
and by the way, there's a third
and
possibility too that most people don't know about.
In that case, I think my opinion is more, what I just said is more applies to agnostic, not atheist then.
Right.
So, okay. And what was the third?
Agnosticism.
Say again?
Instead of agnostic, agnostic, it's ignostic. ignostic.
Interesting. And what does it mean?
Whatever. Well, it's like the same, what do we call it? Etymology is the word ignore.
I'm going to take a call. Go ahead and talk.
Okay. Basically, agnosticism is what I do is for me and my family and the world, not God. God is irrelevant. I can ignore God. Agnosticism. So I don't do what I do for God. I do what I do for myself. I do it because I get something out of it or whatever. Is there a God? Is there no God? Doesn't matter. I don't care. That's what that is what an agnostic would say. They don't care. That God is irrelevant to what they do, think, believe, act, say. It could be easily argued. Let me give you an example, which I've given before, but there's a family that when I was the rabbi of a congregation, there was a family in my congregation who they did Judaism because they thought Judaism made sense. It fed their intellectual curiosity. It answered questions that they had, but they didn't believe in God. They kept kosher. They kept Shabbat. They were incredibly active with my synagogue. They just didn't believe in God. And you may say, well, they're agnostic. Either way, the point is that what they were doing wasn't to please God, which I find to be a very interesting concept. Doing the Bible because it pleases God. That's like saying I go 20 miles an hour in the school zone to please the judge. Okay. At any rate,
That's fine.
they definitely were at least agnostic, if not atheist, but they still were very committed to Judaism because what they were doing was for themselves. They recognized it as fulfilling, meaningful. So,
all right. Okay, so we will go ahead and take this caller right now. Caller, go ahead with your question. You're live on the air. Oh, this is Katie. Katie Burris, good friend.
Yeah, this is Katie. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Go ahead with
hi.
your question. Oh, sorry. Yeah, she can hear you. Katie,
Hi.
You can hear Rabbi, right?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead. Are you okay?
Should I ask him my question?
Yes, you're live on the air right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, this is Katie from Florida.
Welcome.
And my son is a professed atheist. So I kind of gave up on him years ago. Is that the right thing for me to be doing?
Look, especially when it's our own kids, believe me, I know. They're going to do what they're going to do, and part of what they're doing, whether they admit it or not, is explicitly rebelling against their parents. And they may actually take advice more easily, listen to the advice given to them. You know, the same arguments that you would give about believing in God, but they might be more open-minded to it if it came from someone who wasn't their mother or father. Did you do the right thing in giving up? In my opinion, if you're talking about haranguing them with God every time they came over to your house, yeah, I think you did the right thing in not continuing that kind of behavior. I think they need to see that you are devoted. I think they need to see that you are not an atheist. I think they need to see that I think they need to see that for you in your life, you find it gives meaning and purpose and has a function in your life. Because down the road, they or their kids, your grandkids, might say, oh, you know, she likes this. Maybe I'm going to try it out. But to try to convince them, no, I think you did the right thing by backing off.
Yeah, I can't even mention anything about any type of religion because he'll walk out the door.
Of course. And yet anything you might say, they might be more open-minded to if it came from someone who wasn't their mom. That's just the nature of parent and child. But yes, I would back off too. I would just let it alone. You're not going to convince them. They're certainly not going to convince you. Stalemate. But I would still make sure that they see you doing, you know, expressing your beliefs, expressing your faith for your sake. So
right.
Yeah. That would be my response.
Yeah, that's very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Katie. You bet.
Funny thing about it is when my wife passed away, my younger daughter was 2 months before her bat mitzvah, and she rebelled. She didn't want to have anything to do with synagogue, bat mitzvah. I mean, she was done. Now she's serving on the board of her synagogue, which I find hysterically funny. You know, there's an influence that comes from parenting that is not always club you on the head obvious. And sometimes by backing off, in this case, showing them that you find it meaningful, that you find it worthwhile, that it does something for you that other things do not, can serve as a model for them much later in life. You never know if they will come back to something. So
that's true.
I hope it is.
Okay, so where are we at? We don't have any calls. Let me see if we have any questions in the chat. We're right at 45 minutes now. Okay, guys, again, there is a tag right here. Let's see. Actually, Janice Hart, I think we just answered your question there about the atheists trying to convince them. Let's see. Okay, so I don't see any questions right off the bat. So, mods, if you see a question that we missed, if you would copy paste it and tag me in it, I can read it off. Let's see. That's funny. Janice asked a question, and then she came back. Oh, I guess Rabbi just answered my question. Good. And you didn't even know what her question was. That's good. Okay, well.
By the way, at 8:27, Janice Hart writes to Meredith, while I was still in the church, we had a guest speaker who started off his prayer with, "Dear Holy Spirit." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I can't believe, doesn't that fly in the face of Christianity where prayer is supposed to be directed towards Jesus?
No kidding, right.
That's very interesting.
Right.
Janice, yeah. Let's see.
That is pretty wild. And it was a guest speaker. Wow, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, now, Watching My Life Flash B writes at 6:28, Paul's confusing writings contaminated the wheat field of the Gospels with tates. Now, I'm sure that that's a typo, but I'm not sure what he meant by that. Watching My Life Flash B at 8:28.
Yeah.
Contaminated the wheat fields of the Gospels with tates.
Interesting.
I'm not sure what that meant.
Caller, you are live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hey, William, this is Ralph from Tiny Arkansas again.
Hey, Ralph.
How's it going?
Doing well. Welcome back. How are you today?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Give me 1 second. Don't hang up, okay? Caller, sit tight. I'll be right back with you. Don't hang up, all right?
Okay.
All right. Okay, Ralph, go right ahead, my friend. You are live on the air with your question.
Hey, Rabbi, how you doing?
Thank God, doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, I have I wanted to approach the whole Jesus is God thing from a little bit different direction.
Okay.
From what Jesus didn't say, one of those type things.
I like it. Go for it.
So in Matthew 15 and in Mark 7, I think, Jesus really dressed down the Pharisees for the Pharisees were apparent. Well, of course, according to the story, the Pharisees were giving Jesus heck because his disciples weren't washing their hands.
Right, 15:2.
And so Jesus really dressed them down, really got on to them, right? Well, if Jesus came out of the ethos, out of eternity, he was a creator. He's all that. Now, Hashem taught the Hebrews how to wash their hands and stay clean. Jesus had the perfect opportunity to back that up, and he didn't do it. And now we know that just the washing of hands probably could have staved off the Black Plague and saved 1 billion people. But instead of saying, you know what, you need to follow what the Pharisees are saying and wash your hands because it keeps you healthy, he didn't say that. Instead, he got on to the Pharisees and he let billions of people die.
Wait a minute.
That makes sense?
My old man memory. Jesus was admonishing them for not washing their hands.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
If Jesus was admonishing them for not washing their hands,
he wanted them to wash
he
their
wanted
hands.
them to wash their hands. If he wanted them to wash their hands, he was trying to save 1 billion people from not dying from the germs that would have been. I'm missing something here.
Okay, let me just read it here. It says, came Jesus to scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders?" So Jesus' disciples are transgressing this, for they do not wash their hands. So it's actually, then came to Jesus. That's right. So the Pharisees came to Jesus asking him why they are transgressing the tradition of the elders, for they do not wash their hands. So Jesus apparently wasn't teaching them to wash their hands.
Okay.
But then he answered and said to them, "Why do you also?" Then Jesus answers, "Why do you also transgress the commandments of commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, honor your father and mother." Blah blah blah. So
Right. So he turned it around on them.
Yeah.
And he had a perfect chance.
Right.
To teach people how to stay clean, and he didn't do it like Hashem did in the beginning.
So he had the chance to tell them to wash their hands, and he did not do that, is what you're saying.
Right. The Pharisees, It was such a big deal, the Pharisees pointed it out. Why aren't you having your disciples wash their hands before they eat?
Right.
Right.
And you know, I've even heard pastors on TV.
Yeah.
My dear friends, hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com. TaNaChTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
I've even heard pastors on TV.
Yeah.
Even today, after knowing what a health hazard not washing your hands
Absolutely,
is,
right.
Even today, pastors on TV will get on to the Jews of the New Testament of Jesus' time for keeping such traditions. It's mind-blowing.
Wow.
It just blows my mind.
Right.
So,
interesting. That's really
So
cool.
anyways,
I don't think
question.
I don't think that topic has ever been discussed on the channel before.
Probably not.
So cool, man.
Because
Okay, Ralph, thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
You bet. Rabbi, you were saying?
Oh, I was just saying that I don't think it's been discussed either.
Right.
You know, the interesting thing is part of Jewish ritual, embedded in Jewish law, is that when Jews come from a cemetery or in any way dealing with the dead, they're supposed to wash their hands. Even if it's only ceremonial washing their hands, they're washing their hands.
Yep.
Okay. And to go back to his comment about the Black Plague, the plagues through Europe, one of the reasons given for the Jews having less frequency of the Black Plague in the Jewish community is because after they would bury their dead, then means they're dealing with the Black Plague, even if they didn't know what a germ was.
Sure.
Okay, they're washing their hands before they go back to social situations.
I mean, and I think for touching the dead, you actually have to bathe your whole body, not just your hands, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But and I think that might have been more for the Levites and Kohanim, but I don't remember. But the point is that they did, and it led to what he was saying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, caller, you're live on the air. Please tell us your name. Where you're calling from.
Hey, this is Robbie again. Continuation of the previous.
Oh, sure.
The question I had. I just wasn't sure if Rabbi understood my question, but maybe he did, and I'm not comprehending his answer. But basically, my question about atheists misrepresenting their what they actually believe. It's not so much trying to change what they believe when I have a conversation with them, but sometimes there's a certain amount of hate that exists in certain parts of the atheist world where they don't focus on maybe intellectual pursuit of the truth, etc. And but it turns out that they have latent maybe Christian beliefs or whatever, and they're hiding behind their atheism to push some kind of hateful narrative. And I'm just wondering, should we engage with those kind of conversations or just avoid discussing with those?
The simple answer is that the only time that you really would need to engage with anybody on that at all is if somebody comes to you asking a sincere question. If you already know that their question is not sincere, you're wasting your time. It's a complete waste of time. But if you're not sure and you think, well, maybe the question is sincere, then go ahead and talk with them. But as soon as you find out it's not sincere and they're just trying to railroad you in, then you just discontinue and walk away. Rabbi?
Well, okay. No, wait a minute. I think it depends on so many things. How you're feeling that day. If you want to bother that day, if you want to take even a minute out of your day to deal with people like that, sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Okay, but if they're saying things that are missionary in nature, they're coming at you first.
Or hateful.
I'm sorry?
Hateful stuff, too. The hateful stuff sometimes, too, just where they're pushing some kind of anti-Semitic type narrative.
And if they come to you, they are fair game, and it's open season. Now, you may not feel like it sometimes,
Well,
you may not want to bother sometimes, but if they're saying something, then I wouldn't necessarily want to have them get away with murder.
no,
I wouldn't want them to.
My point that and I agree with you. My point to that would be, is your conversation that you're going to have with them be fruitful? And the answer is no. It won't be fruitful unless they're really asking you just genuine questions that are sincere. Now you can give them the other answer, like Rabbi is saying, and get right in their face if you want to. Don't let them off the hook. But is it going to be fruitful for them? No, because they're just going to kind of stay angry and keep being the same person unless their questions are sincere. That was my point.
And my point is that their questions may be insincere. I'm not worried about the person making the comment, asking the question when they're not. What I'm worried about is the people who are listening to you, or let's pretend it's Facebook, the people who will read your response long after you've given it. Okay, I want people. You may not be able to change the person who came at you, but you might be able to touch something in the mind, heart, soul, whatever, of people who,
if there are witnesses, yeah,
yeah, like Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, that's a different story altogether.
Right. So again, it really depends so much on the circumstances, everything from how you're feeling that minute to what you think that their motivation is. I don't believe I can give a blanket statement. Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. My personal opinion is, if they're coming at you, attacking you, you are fully in your right to respond to them accordingly. And I don't mean politely. Let me tell you something, okay? Some people lock their car doors parked on the street. Some people don't. If a burglar comes up to a car and sees that it's locked, he's going to shrug his shoulders and move on to a car that isn't locked. And my point is that giving them a response that shuts them down, okay, might make them a little bit more hesitant to go to the person who doesn't know the answer that you do know,
right,
because they might know the answer.
Right.
Okay. And say it often enough, they talk about planting the mustard seed of faith. There is also planting the mustard seed of doubt. And if they come at me, I may not change them. I might change people who come later, but I don't want anybody to believe that we don't have a response to their stupidity, to their idolatry, to their attack.
Yep. Right.
It probably depends somewhat on if you think good people are listening and in on the conversation too.
Exactly.
There you go.
Because that's the problem I have with debates. First of all, I can't do a debate. I get too angry. Not a good way to have a debate. But the debate is not winning the debate. The debate is winning over the audience, smiling at them, personable, letting your charisma come out. That's how you get yes, you have to answer, and yes, you have to give reasonable responses and be intelligent and whatever, but it's really not a debate. It's really who can win over the audience.
I'm going to take this call. Go ahead and hang up. Okay.
All right.
Judy, Judy, sit tight. All
right. That's all I really was going to say.
Oh, well, in that case, we'll go ahead and take the caller. Judy, you're live on the air. What question do you have for us tonight?
Hello.
Yep, you're live on the air.
Shalom.
Welcome back.
Shalom.
I actually thought this was a rerun, and I was calling to check. So I really don't have a lot to say except wish you all well.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. You too.
But I disagree with some of your interpretations, but if we're all sincerely trying to do the right thing and searching for the truth, we're going to get to the truth. If we're all sincere, but I feel like time is short.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's a true statement. But you could be sincerely wrong. Just because you're sincere doesn't mean you're going to find the truth. That just means you're sincerely searching. That's all that means. The only time you'll find the truth is if you remove that cloud over your eyes, that they're the sunglasses of Jesus, and remove them and say, whatever the truth is, I'm willing to accept it no matter what, and you really mean that, then you might be open to the truth, and only then.
But I think that's what it means to really search with all. The Bible says in the Old Testament, right? You search with all your heart.
Jeremiah, yep.
And you find me, right? So you have to do it completely.
But you're not searching with all your heart if you put a prenup in front of it. If you say, well, I want to know the truth, but I'll never reject Jesus, you're not searching with all your heart. You're putting a limitation to it. That's the whole point.
Well, you're not saying that about me, I hope.
Well, I'm just saying anybody who prays and says accept, then you're not searching with your full heart.
Yeah, well then, right. So I agree with that statement, but I do think that everybody could have their biases, and if you're brought up a certain way, you're more inclined to go that way. Only one thing can be true, but we are influenced by the way, other factors, but
clearly we are, but the operative term in what you were saying is if they are really open-minded enough to search.
Right.
Because a lot of people I know come at me, not come to me, come at me, and the first thing they say is, well, I'm just looking for the truth. No, they're not. They're not looking for the truth. They're looking to missionize me and convert me to their religion. They're not looking for truth. They want to give me
maybe
what
they are.
They want to give me their truth, what they think their truth is.
Right, which you don't like that, but some of them are doing it out of conscience. They think they're doing the right thing.
That's true. Yeah.
And they're wrong. They're not.
But they believe they're
right.
they're
Just like your statement earlier about the Facebook that sometimes you have to italicize something. So if you think you're right, you want other people to hear what you have to say. And I don't agree with all what Catholics say or this one said, but I have a book right now. I'm reading the history of modern Israel. I'm not, a Zionist, but I believe in the cause. So, I feel akin, but I still, I still believe what I believe, not just because I'm blind. I believe I interpret things a little differently, and
what a wonderful world we live in, where everybody is free to interpret anything they want, any way they want.
True.
Right. And I don't push it on anybody. I like that we can have dialogue, and that's why I like your program.
That's cool.
If it's true dialogue, a lot of times it's just two people, including our side, who are just giving monologues. They're not really dialoguing. They're just monologuing.
Well, she's talking about just with our experiences with her, because she calls in a lot, and she's got a lot of good points she brings up.
Okay.
So cool. Okay. Well, Judy, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. You have a good night.
Talk to you soon.
Shalom. Bye bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool. All right. Well, you know what? That's going to be a candy wrapper is what that is. It is a wrap. Guys, it's been a good night. Again, I'll edit this video out to get rid of all the dead spots and tidy it up a bit. This video should replay. Today's date is March 4th, 2024. This video should replay sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I may even be 4 weeks behind on Rabbi Federow's videos. I'm not sure. But if you want to have immediate access, I'm going to put this in chat one more time. If you want immediate access to everything that I record, right away, then you're going to have to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I think it's $4.99 a month. I'll get $2.20 of that, or $2.80. I'm not sure. I'm not doing it for the money. I edit all my videos, and they stay private, or they stay members only until then. So even if there weren't memberships, the process would be the same. I would still have these videos marked private until I have time to edit them. So that's just a perk. If you want it, it's yours. It's yours for the taking. So, Rabbi, thank you so much for your time.
Always my pleasure.
As usual. Okay. Love you guys. Love you, Rabbi. And we will talk to you guys next week. Same time, same place at Shalom. Shalom, everyone. Peace.
Shalom, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com. TaNaChTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
השאיפה